Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another 10 pens currently inked up for this week. I think let's go through these briefly one by one. We'll go through them in a little bit more detail and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right we have the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. We have a Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the red marble. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Caput Mundi, a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence, a Visconti Homo Sapiens Blue Lagoon. We have another Visconti Medici Il Magnifico, and this is in the Lapis Lazuli. We have a Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the black marble. We have a Visconti Watermark. We have an Enoto Magna Carta, and we have a Visconti Leonardo da Vinci Machina. So, I think let's go through these pens in a little bit more detail. So, this was one of the pens that actually started me down not only the Grail route of fountain pens, but also the Visconti route and Grail route of fountain pens as well. And this was a pen that I purchased in 2016, and I liked it so much that I, the next day, actually bought another Visconti. And I honestly didn't think that was going to happen. So this is the London Fog, and this is a beautiful, beautiful material. So it's a demonstrator pen. It has these celluloid ribbon strips throughout that clear or transparent resin there. It's a power vac filler. It is a double reservoir as well. It's got a hook safe lock mechanism, and this has a 23 carat palladium nib, and it's a fine nib with an ABS plastic feed. Now, these were the original nibs that, well, I say original actually, that they were before the current new nibs, the in-house 18 karat gold nibs of Visconti, but these weren't the original. Visconti originally had not only steel nibs but also 14 karat and 18 karat gold Bock nibs. They then transitioned to these 23 karat palladium nibs from Bock, and then they went to their own in-house 18 karat and 14 karat gold nibs. So this is the 23 karat palladium nibs, and these are normally have quite a little bit of a bounce or spring to them. They have in that case have a little bit of flex to them in terms of line variation, and these are nibs that I typically like a lot. Now, I do have some of the older 14 and 18 karat gold nibs from Visconti, the Bock nibs, and they typically, some of them have been a little bit bouncy, but most of them are quite rigid. The newer style 18 karat gold nibs, which are on these two and this one here, can typically be somewhere between fairly stiff or rigid to a little bit bouncy, but not as bouncy as some of the 23 karat palladium nibs. So if you're after a bouncy nib, then you kind of want to get it, sort of check it out before you order it. So if you can get to test a nib first, then do test a nib. And that rings true for the 23 karat palladium nibs as well as the newer 18 karat gold nibs as well. And I guess the 14 karat gold as well. The next pen here is the Visconti Medici Il Magnifico, and this is the red marble, and yes, this is marble, and it's made of marble granite and also solid silver. It's AG 925, so this is one heavy pen for sure. This does have the 23 karat palladium nib on there. It's a medium nib. It's a single reservoir power vac filler. It's got the hook safe lock mechanism, but again, I like how this writes. It has been very much a daily writer for me, just like the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog has. But in terms of weight, it is way much heavier than the Homo Sapiens London Fog and all of these other resin versions, because it is solid silver and it is solid marble. So if you like a heavy pen, then this is definitely a pen to go for. If you like a light pen, then certainly the resin versions of the Homo sapiens are probably the best ones because they're going to be fairly light. If you want something that's maybe a little bit heavier than the lava versions, although a lot of those are typically single reservoir, not double reservoir. The newer ones, like the Skylight and things like that, do have double reservoirs in them, but obviously you just have to sort of really check on the model that whether or not it has a single or double reservoir. Now, this next one here is the Visconti Homo sapiens Caput Mundi, and this is almost out of ink. Again, this is another resin version. This doesn't have the celluloid strips, ribbon strips inside it. It's just a semi-opaque demonstrator there in this lovely red hue that's going on there with brass fittings. It is a double reservoir and a power vac filler. Now, in terms of the double reservoir, you can normally see the difference here is that if there's a gap here and you've got the O-ring seal that's higher up here, and there's this little window here, an ink window essentially, that is the double reservoir. So that's a nice, easy way of telling whether or not a pen's got a double, certainly a Visconti, whether or not it's got a double reservoir or a single reservoir. It's got the hook safe lock mechanism. And again, this has got the 23 cat palladium medium nib on there. This just writes beautiful. So I do love writing with this pen. These are just superb pens. And I do we have the My Pen Finu on the Visconti, so I have put my initials there. So you can do that if you want to. But that, again, is another one of the 23 cat palladium nibs that I really like writing with because it's got a little bit of a bounce. It's a wet writer, and that just ticks all of the boxes for me. The next pen here is, again, a Visconti Homo sapiens. This is the Midnight in Florence. So this one doesn't, although it has swirls, it's not celluloid. It's just a resin swirl around a demonstrator here. So it's not maybe as nice or as beautiful as the London fog swirls. But it's not far off it, though. I think it's fairly good. But you do see a lot less of the ink in that pen. Now, again, this is a power vac filler. It is a double reservoir. It's very hard to see because there is an ink window here, but you really cannot see much of it. It's got the hook safe lock mechanism, and it's got the 23 cat palladium medium nib there. But these are just, I find these are fairly lightweight pens. They are the right size in my hand. I love the concave section going on here to stop your fingers slipping down. And I like being a power vac and a double reservoir. It does hold around about 2.5 milliliters of ink. The single reservoir is about 1.5 milliliters of ink. So if you want to go between a fairly good capacity, 1 to 1.5 milliliters of ink, then go for the single reservoir. But if you want that extra capacity, go for the double reservoir versions of pens from Visconti. The other option you could also do is, if I just reach through here, you could actually just get a Penida pen filler or a Visconti travelling inkwell. I've got some of those as well. I do find the Penida pen fillers a little bit better. They hold a lot more ink, so I can get somewhere between 10 and 15 milliliters of ink in those. So if I wanted to go away for a week or take my pens away and not have to refill them, then I would use a Penida pen filler for that. The Visconti ones, I think, I can't remember exactly how much they hold. I think it may be 5 to 7 milliliters, maybe. It's not a lot. It's about half the capacity of the Penida pen fillers. The next pen here inked up this week is, again, another Visconti Homo sapiens. This is the blue Lagoon, and this really is a beautiful colour. This has a lot more blue. It has some green in it here, but it's more, I would say, of a bluey colour than a green colour in terms of the amount of blue versus green on that pen. But again, it's very similar to the Midnight in Florence in terms of its swirls. It's resin, again, it's not celluloid shavings. So it's not a celluloid or blend of celluloid and resin, it's just resin. but again, it's not a bad sort of look. You do see a lot more in this version, the Blue Lagoon. The Midnight in Florence was the first one that they did with this, and it obscured a lot of the body. I think Visconti probably learned for the next one, which was the Blue Lagoon, to try and show a little bit more sort of ink in that body or barrel there. So this is a power filler. Again, it is a double reservoir, but again, you can't unfortunately really see that double reservoir here. It's a hook safe lock mechanism as well, so that's a quarter of a turn. You've got the concave section. Now, this actually does have the newer 18 karat gold nib. This is the in-house nib. It's a medium nib with an ABS plastic feed there. Now, this one did write quite dry, and I did have to make some tweaking to that nib in terms of making it write wetter. In terms of using a brass shim just to open the tines up a little bit more and just make it that write more to how I personally would like it to write. And I think there's a lot of people that will harp on about nib quality, whether or not it's Visconti or whether or not it's another brand. Yes, there will be consistency issues across all brands in terms of how nibs write, whether or not some are smooth, some have a pencil-like feedback, some are more wetter and some are more drier. That consistency is very hard to nail down, certainly on gold nibs, where gold nibs flex more. It's a lot more easier consistency-wise to nail it down on steel nibs, because steel nibs are more typically not flexible. But from my perspective, whether or not a nib writes wet or dry, I will, if it writes too dry, then I will just make some tweaks to that nib just to make it write a little bit wetter. You can have any nibmeister do that, but you do have to obviously be careful that you are voiding the warranty potentially on that nib and on that pen if you are to do so. So you have to sort of do that at your own risk or your own peril. And I taught myself how to do this, and I have never actually broken a nib or gone too far with a nib, and I've always actually made the nibs write better than they did initially if I have been modifying them. So, but clearly not everybody does that, and I know I have seen horror stories where people have tried to adjust the nib themselves and bent the tines or bent the nib or dropped it or taken the tipping off or chipped the tipping or even the gold plating on some nibs as well. So it is down to you if you want to do that. Honestly, I would say take it to a proper nibmeister if you have a nib that is writing too dry. But if you have learnt to do this yourself, then obviously that's down to you if you want to do that. But just bear in mind that you do void the warranty. The next pen here is a Visconti Medici Il Magnifico. This is in the Lapis Lazuli, so it's basically the same as the red marble here, but it's in the Lapis Lazuli stone. Again, it is solid silver, but it's actually a gold vermeil, so it's gold plated over silver. But this is, again, very heavy. So if you want a power vac filler, you want a heavy pen the size of a Visconti Homo Sapiens, then this is the pen to certainly own. So it's a power vac. It is a single reservoir. It's got the hook safe lock mechanism. And then you've got the newer style 18 karat gold nib. That is a medium nib. Now, I typically do find that this one writes a little bit more broad than medium. But I still do like that a lot. I guess typically most of my 23 karat palladium nibs have written more broad. Certainly the medium nibs, they've written more like a Western broad anyway because they've been very wet writers. So from that perspective, it doesn't bother me. Although more lately, I have been going towards more of a Western fine. The next pen here, inked up this week, is again another Visconti Medici Il Magnifico. And this is in the black marble, or Nero, I believe it's called. Now, this has got some lovely black and gold in that pen there. This is, again, another power vac filler. It's got this aged sort of look. So this is, again, another vermeil over silver, as I understand it. And you can see there, so there is some tarnishing that's going on here on that nib, which I can polish up because that is effectively a silver. And it's also a newer 18 karat gold nib, and that's a medium nib. Again, this one writes a little bit more towards a Western fine for me. But you've got the hook safe lock, single reservoir, Paravac filler. It's the size of a Visconti Homo Sapiens, and I just love writing with this a lot. So for me, that one is inked up this week as well. We've also got the Visconti Watermark, and this is unfortunately a bit of a fingerprint magnet and not an easy pen to clean, because this is a silver overlay, so it's AG925 solid silver, but it's then plated in palladium to give it this lovely shine and to stop it from tarnishing. And the issue here is, if you want to polish this, I normally would use a microfiber cloth. However, these V cutouts are quite sharp, and a lot of cloths will snag on those, certainly microfiber cloths. So that's why I say it is a little bit more difficult to clean this pen to take your fingerprints off of it. But I do like this pen a lot. It is a Paravac filler. It is a double reservoir. You can see that ink window there. It's a screw thread. It's not got the hook safe lock. It's got a concave section, and this also has the older 23 karat palladium medium nibs there. It is still fairly heavy because it is obviously a solid silver overlay, but it's not as much silver or marble as these pens have. So it is an overlay rather than a solid silver pen. So I have that one inked up this week as well. And then another new pen that I added to my collection in 2010 was this beautiful pen, and this is the Enoto Magna Carta. And I have to say, I am really enjoying writing with that pen. That is a beautiful, beautiful pen. And it does have parts of the Magna Carta script engraved onto this pen. And also you can see there the shield as well. Or the royal shield. Now, this is again solid silver, so it's AG925. It is a heavy pen. It's longer than the Medici Il Magnifico from Visconti, and it also has a number 7 size Enoto 18 karat gold nib. Now, I got this in a fine nib because when I went to the pen show, I wanted to. I've been gravitating and writing more letters with fine nibs or medium nibs, and I thought I wanted to try a fine nib. So I tried a fine nib. I thought I would walk away with a medium and play it safe. However, when I tried the fine nib at the Enoto stand at the London Pen Show in October 2021, I really liked it. So I decided that was it. I was going to buy this with a fine nib, and I did. So there is that pen inked up as well this week. And then the final pen here is this one. It's the Visconti Leonardo da Vinci Machina. And this was a pen that I fell in love with when I saw that it was being announced. This is a Scrimshaw pen. I would kind of say it's a Macchia as well, but technically it is Scrimshaw. Macchia normally is down to laying sort of Rawdon strips or drawings onto a pen or paintings, whereas this is more chiseled, so it's more of a Scrimshaw. But this is a beautiful pen, and you can even see Leonardo da Vinci there. So this is a beautiful pen. Comes in a massive, massive desk stand or pen stand, which I have to just put away because it is too massive to really place anywhere on my desks. So this has the newer style 18 karat gold medium nib there. Does have a little bit of ink crustation going on there. I've got a brown ink in there, Akumon SBRE brown, and that does actually crustate quite a bit. So that's just one thing to bear in mind with Typically, it happens with brown ink, a lot of time orange inks, sometimes red inks. It's just the amount of certain sort of colour dyes that you have. This is a single reservoir Paravac filler. Again, it's the size of a Visconti Homo sapien, maybe a little bit longer. But this is a beautiful pen, and it's a pen that I love writing with. So I have that one inked up with me this week as well. So I think with that, let's go and do a writing sample. So the first pen here is the Visconti Homo sapiens London Fog. So I think let's do an ink swatch here. And this is a fine nib. I do find it's not a super wet nib, but it's wet enough. And strangely enough, I'm finding the ink in here. I may have actually mixed it with some other ink at some point, or maybe the ink has just changed colour as it's been in the pen for a while. But this is a Visconti Homo sapiens, and it's the London Fog, and it is a fine, and it's a 23 cat palladium nib, and the ink in here, strange enough, is Pilot Iwashizuku Konpeki. Now, normally Konpeki is actually a lot lighter than that, and that's why I'm finding that a little bit strange. It looks actually quite the same colour in the body of the barrel there, but when it's writing, it's coming out a lot darker. So I don't know. I will probably flush the pen out and ink it up with something else. But I have that one inked up this week. The next pen is the Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the red marble. I think let's do an ink swatch. And you can see that this has quite a nice red colour here. So this is ink actually from Visconti themselves. So this is the Visconti, and it's the Medici Il Magnifico, and it's the red marble, and it is a medium 23 cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is Visconti Bordeaux. But that is a lovely coloured red ink. The next pen is the Visconti Homo sapiens Caput Mundi, and I am getting very low in this, but this is a beautiful red ink, and it's an ink that I had for a while, and I didn't think I was really ever going to use. I thought one day I would just get it, crack open the bottle and fill up a pen, and I loved it ever since. So this is the Visconti, and it's the Homo sapiens, and it's the Caput Mundi, and it is a medium, and it's a 23 cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is Pelican. If I can spell Pelican right, Pelican Edelstein, or Edelstein, as I'm being told by several people, and it is Garnet, which for me is a beautiful red ink, and an ink that I have pretty much fallen in love with. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Homo sapiens Midnight in Florence. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And again, this is another wet writing nib. It is the, again, 23 cat palladium nib from Visconti. But this is quite a nice writing nib. So this is the Visconti Homo sapiens, and it's the Midnight in Florence. And I will probably get to running out of space here. It is a medium 23 cat palladium nib, And then the ink in here is KWZ Gummy Berry. But that, again, is a beautiful ink. An ink that I fell in love with from KWZ. I didn't think I would. I put it in one of my Molteni pens to start with, and I really liked it. And I found myself re-inking that pen about a dozen times. And then I decided, well, I maybe try it in this pen, and I loved it as well. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Blue Lagoon. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, this is one of the newer 18 karat gold nibs from Visconti, the in-house nibs. This is a medium nib, but it writes more like a Western fine, and this actually wrote very dry out of the box. It's writing a bit dry now because it is actually a dry ink as well that I'm using. So this is a Visconti Homo Sapiens, and it's the Blue Lagoon, and it is I want to say fine nib, but it's actually a medium, and it's an 18 karat gold new nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine, and it's Aqua Lagoon. But you can see here the difference between the line width here between the medium 23 karat palladium and then the medium 18 karat gold nib there. Now I'm going to show you again a little bit of consistency or inconsistency here, because the next one is the Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the Lapis Lazuli. So I'll do an ink swatch here, but I will show you the difference. So this is the Visconti Medici Il Magnifico, and it's in the Lapis Lazuli, and this is a medium, and it is the 18 karat gold nib. Now the ink in here is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it's Aji Sei. But again, like, you can see the difference here. So two 18 karat gold new nibs from Visconti, medium nibs. The difference between that Blue Lagoon and also the Lapis Lazuli there is actually quite a difference. So that's just something to bear in mind. The next pen here is the Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the black marble. So we'll do another ink swatch here as well. Now this one writes, I would say, a lot wetter. Again, it's the newer 18 karat gold nib from Visconti in-house. However, it writes, even though it's a medium, writes a little bit more on the fine. So this is a Visconti, and it's the Medici Il Magnifico, and it's the black marble, and it is the medium 18 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine Earl Grey. But again, you can see there that this black marble is very similar to the Blue Lagoon. Maybe slightly hair width wider, but not as wide as the Lapis Lazuli. The next pen is the Visconti Watermark. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now this is the older 23 karat palladium nibs, and these I do find have a little bit more of a bounce to them. So this is the Visconti Watermark. Now this one doesn't have as much bounce as some of the others, and so this is a medium, but you can see slight line variation that you're getting there, and it's a 23 karat palladium nib, and I guess you can still get some line variation out of it, but I'd say it's more of a slightly more of a stiffer 23 cat palladium nib. You have to push it a little bit harder. And the ink in here is Pilot, and it is Iroshizuku. I was trying to think of the name there. Iroshizuku, and it is Yuyaki, which is a beautiful orange ink, and an ink I like a lot. The reason why I like that orange ink is that I have a number of other orange inks that I do love more. And there are inks from Sailor, and also Diamine as well. But a lot of them will go crusty. This Yuyaki does not go crusty on me, or very rarely does it go crusty. So for me, that's why I like that ink a lot. The next pen is the Enoto Magna Carta. So I think let's do an ink swatch. Now, this is a fine nib. It is quite a wet writer as well. Not as wet as maybe some of the Viscontis, but it's still fairly wet. So this is the Enoto Magna Carta. And it is a fine, and it's an 18 cat gold nib. Now, that's the sort of difference I'm going to get on line variation there. It's not as much as that 23 cat palladium, but there is still line variation. Now, the ink in here is Diamine Earl Grey, which is a lovely grey ink. And then the last pen inked up this week is the Visconti, and this is a Leonardo da Vinci Machina. So we'll do an ink swatch. And this is one of the newer 18 karat gold nibs from Visconti. And although it's a medium nib, it writes more like a Western fine, but it also writes wet. So I'm more forgiving when a nib writes wet, even if it doesn't write maybe to the same nib width as you're expecting. So this is a Visconti, and it's the Leonardo da Vinci Machina. And it is a medium, and it's an 18 cat gold nib. I'll do that so you can see the line variation, very similar to the Magna Carta, both in line width there and also the flexing. And the ink in here is Akamon, and it is SBRE Brown, which is a beautiful ink made by Diamine actually for Akamon and for Stephen Brown. So I think let's take a look at these pens inked up one more time. So we have a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog in a fine 23 cat palladium nib, inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. We have a Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the red marble, in a medium 23 cat palladium nib, inked up with Visconti Bordeaux. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Caput Mundi in a medium 23 cat palladium nib, inked up with Pelican Edelstein Garnet. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence in a medium 23 cat palladium nib, inked up with KWZ Gummy. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Blue Lagoon in a medium 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Diamine Aqua Lagoon. We have a Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the Lapis Lazuli in a medium 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Aji Sei. We have a Visconti Medici Il Magnifico in the black marble in a medium 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Diamine Earl Grey. We have a Visconti Watermark, and that's in a medium 23 karat palladium nib, inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Yuyaki. We have an Enoto Magna Carta in a fine 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Diamine Earl Grey. We have a Visconti Leonardo da Vinci Machina in a medium 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Akamon SBRE Brown. So there you have it. That's my currently inked pens for this week. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.